What's up, everybody? Welcome to my 2026 NFL season predictions video. We're going to be walking through all the things NFL season, going to be going over division standings, playoff teams, and even awards. But in this, right now, we're going to first cover the AFC. So let's dive right into it. Like I said, starting off with the AFC, kicking off with the AFC East first up. So right now, I'm gonna have the Bills, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins in that order. I'm not predicting any sort of standing specifically, just in the order that they're gonna finish, in my opinion. I got the Bills finishing first and the Patriots finishing second. Patriots finished off with 14. They were 14-3 last year, right? And for me, it's not about them just getting worse because they did add in some pieces. They added in AJ Brown and Romeo Dobbs, Kevin Byard, etc. But it's all about whether they're going to win 14 games again. Do they take a step back? And I think they will take a step back, whether it's by a game or two. And then at that point, I do see the Bills pouncing on that and improving by a game or two. They were 12-5 last year, had some issues, but I think they may be able to fix some of that, especially with that addition of DJ Moore, Bradley Chubb. They're bringing in TJ Parker is what they drafted in 2026 out of the second round. So I think they're going to be able to make something happen and improve from 12-5 and maybe win an extra game or two. While I think the Patriots may take a step back just by a little, but still finishing second in this division. While I have the Jets and the Dolphins finishing third and fourth. I think for the Jets, I see the improvement they've made in the transactions they've made throughout the offseason with bringing in Minka Fitzpatrick, Geno Smith, etc. And even, with the draft through David Bailey and even drafting a backup quarterback as well in Cade Klubnik. And for them, I see the defense getting a lot better. Zero interceptions last year. And then with the Dolphins, they got rid of a lot of people, even when bringing in a new GM and a new head coach and bringing in Malik Willis. I think they lost a lot of people when it comes to the quarterback, both wide receivers, to Minka Fitzpatrick, Bradley Chubb. They and they're going to be more of a reset year for this year. This is going to be allowing the first year head coach in the NFL, at least, to get everything under his belt, get a season under his belt, and then they can progress into 2027. So this one's going to be more of a prove year for a lot of the players, and it will end up finishing fourth. For me, next in the AFC North, I have the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns. Next, for the Ravens, I see them definitely improving compared to last year. It was an on and off. It was a weird season for the Ravens. Then ended up with John Harbaugh getting fired now at the Giants. Bringing in Jesse Minter, who was already used to that style of whether it was defense and style of team as well. Bringing in Trey Hendricks, Lamar Jackson has a new deal. Drafting Kobe Lane and Elijah Surratt for Lamar for some rookie wide receivers. And I think it's gonna be a pretty good year for them. It's going to end up with them finishing first in division. Next up with the Bengals, I see the main thing we always talk about with the Bengals is Joe Burrow going to be healthy? To start the year, he said he's feeling this is the healthiest he's feeling in his entire career in the NFL, and I think that's a huge thing. It's been a quiet off season for them, which I think is really good, and it's the first in a while for them, as opposed to having to worry about any sort of off the field related issues. Bringing in Dexter Lawrence, I think could definitely prove a pretty good season for them this year, and going to finish second in division. Pittsburgh Steelers bring in a lot of people, bring in a lot of the same people, but then also bring in Michael Pittman from the Colts, Jamel Dean as well with a new contract, Max Hanacher drafted out of Arizona State. Obviously, elephant in the room with Aaron Rodgers, and you have Mike McCarthy coming in as well. But I think it will end up finish out with them finishing in third place, and will probably end up seeing possibly, depending on how the season goes, them starting Will Howard at some point towards the back half of the year, and is going to finish out third in division. And then the Browns. The Browns is a weird one also because they've made some changes, obviously trading Max Garrett for Jared Verse and some other picks. But the main question everybody has is the quarterback. I like Deshaun Watson, I like Shadur Sanders, but it's all going to be whether or not they can win more games and who's going to win more games for them, right? They won 5 games last year, and what is that next step for them as they are kind of in that weird phase in the division. Next up in the AFC South, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars repeating, Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans, and the Tennessee Titans. I'll go from top to bottom with this one, the Jags. I think they're going to repeat as division champs. They ended off the season really well, 8-game win streak, but and didn't end all the season right with the playoffs. But I do think they're going to be able to repeat. It's a quiet off season, not really anything going on with them, and it's kind of what they need. And you have a first-year head coach and Liam Cohen. Did a really good job last year. Now they're going in the second year, another year in the offense for Trevor Lawrence and the rest of the team. Obviously, they lost Travis Etienne, but it'll be a pretty good season for them to have them in that second year of the offense and for the team. Next up, the Colts. The Colts did really well last year through the first 10 weeks of the season. And then that's when it kind of all went downhill for them. You had Sauce Gardner injury, you had a Daniel Jones injury, and I think the main question, because it's going to be the same thing with the Bengals, is can they stay healthy in order to be good throughout the entirety of the season? My bank on it is yes, the Colts will be able to stay healthy and it'll get them to second place in the division. The Texans, they have a really great defense, and it showed last year, but the offense is going to be the main thing for them. Is CJ Stroud going to get a new contract before the year starts? We see that um, Will Anderson got a new contract, but that's going to be the next ever seeing if CJ Stroud can he take the next step and show what he showed in his rookie year to kind of continue to prove it for the team. So I do have them finishing in third place in the division, and it'll be interesting to see, is the offense going to continue to struggle or will they be able to stay more consistent throughout the year? And then in fourth place, I do have the Tennessee Titans. I think this would be another growth year for them, for Cam Ward. And then you have new head coach and offensive coordinator. You have new head coach Robert Saleh, offensive coordinator, and Brian Daboll. Spent a lot of money through the offseason and made a lot of different transactions. Drafted Cardinal Tate and Kendrick Falk. And I think it'll be another year for them to grow and Cam Ward to grow with the rest of this team. So maybe not 2026, maybe they'll start to progress in 2027 for them. And then out west in the AFC West, we'll have the Kansas City Chiefs. I do have the Kansas City Chiefs bouncing back and finishing in first place in the division. There's obviously a lot of question marks on how healthy is Patrick Mahomes. They'll have to rely on the run game, especially early on Kenneth Walker, reigning Super Bowl MVP. This was the first year they've missed the playoffs in Mahomes' career, first losing season since 2012. So it'll be really interesting to see how they can continue to bounce back, really. Is the dynasty on hold? Is it dead, or how they continue to go after missing the playoffs and having some injuries last year? Then I have the Denver Broncos taking a little bit of a step back and finishing in second. I think for the Broncos and the Chargers, really, I think it's more of the growth in the Kansas City Chiefs bouncing back as well. So I think the Chargers, and they're in the same round with the Colts and the Bengals, is can they stay healthy? We talk about this every year with the Chargers. Is this is the year, but then next is not the year. So that's my mindset on them. And even with Mike McDaniel coming in, it'll definitely be interesting to see how they continue to progress throughout the season. And then finishing in fourth place is going to be the Raiders for me. I think it's going to be a growth year for the team, and seeing how they can go. It pretty much is Fernando Mendoza, the next quarterback for them. Um, they obviously brought in Kirk Cousins to kind of help with the transition. Will he start week one and then they'll go to Fernando Mendoza in the remainder of the year, or will Fernando Mendoza win in training camp or through preseason, and they'll start for week one? It'll be interesting. I don't think that this is going to be the huge year for them. I think it's going to be 2027 for this team, and it'll be interesting to see how they work out for in this 2026 season. And moving into what I believe is going to be in the playoffs. So obviously the first place division winners are going to be in. This is not the order I have them in. I have no clue. I didn't want to predict the order. No, it may look like it. I did not want to predict the order and where they were going to be in the playoff standings. But obviously they'll be in. Then for my wild card teams, I do have the Patriots making back. Like I said, I think they'll just take a game or two, drop back, but I think they will be able to make it to the playoffs with that team. I have the Bengals getting into the playoffs as well. I think this is going to be the year they have to prove it. Is the coach still going to be there at the end of this year? If they miss the playoffs, Joe Burrow has we see Joe Burrow as a great quarterback, but can he prove that he is a great quarterback even after their Super Bowl run? He's going to need to stay healthy throughout this year. And for my last playoff spot, I do have the Indianapolis Colts. Like I said, they were really good last year, with Daniel Jones, with Jonathan Taylor. And yes, they did lose out on Michael Pittman to the Steelers, with trading him to the Steelers. But I do think it'll be enough for them to make the playoffs. And obviously, the main teams you're going to see that aren't in the playoffs to me is going to be the Texans, the Broncos, and the Chargers. And for all three of those teams, it comes down to the progression of the other teams that didn't make the playoffs that are going to make the playoffs this year, for me at least. And that is the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Chiefs, and the Colts, really. So those four teams who are going to be in the playoffs now compared to last year. And so I think you're definitely going to have to see some teams drop out. Kansas City going from worst to first, and this is kind of how I see. This is my playoff predictions in the Bills, Ravens, Jacksonville, Jags, the Chiefs, Patriots, Bengals, and the Colts, rounding it out. And as always with this channel, put out new picks every week. So I'm going to continue to do that. I'm picking every game, same as I did last year, and I didn't pick all the games last year. I picked the majority of the games last year, but we're picking every single game this year. So make sure you follow along, and we're going to go with the NFC predictions next time as well. And then we're going to round this out with the award predictions as well in the next couple videos. So see you, and thank you.